Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are strapping in for a bit of a long haul, a really melancholic journey into the heart of American organized crime. We're doing a deep dive into Martin Scorsese's 2019 film, The Irishman, sort of a cinematic confession, you could say. And the sources we've looked at, they all make it really clear this is like way more than just Scorsese going back to the gangster genre. People describe it as his somber final word on the whole mob epic idea, an elegiac look at mortality that just strips away all the glamour you might remember from, Goodfellas or Casino.
Absolutely. And I remember when I first saw that runtime. What was it?
209 minutes.
Yeah, 209 minutes, nearly 3.5 hours. It felt like, wow, okay, this is a commitment. But that length, that sprawling scale, it's completely intentional. It has to be that long, really. It's totally integral to the main theme because time itself, it's like the invisible main character here. Scorsese makes you feel it, the sheer relentless march of the decades.
Right.
We sit there with Frank Sheeran basically through his whole adult life right up to the end. And that's essential, I think, to get the crushing weight of his isolation later on.
That's a great point. So the runtime isn't just indulgence, it's structural.
Exactly.
Okay, so our mission today is to unpack why this slow, kind of sorrowful film is seen as such an artistically expressive and culturally significant modern classic. We need to figure out why this confession, as you called it, kind of aches so much. All right, let's dig into the core relationships then. The film really revolves around the central trio, absolute legends of cinema. You've got Robert De Niro playing the hitman, Frank Sheeran, then Joe Pesci, back out of retirement, as the mob boss, Russell Bufalino, and Al Pacino as the very fiery Teamsters leader, Jimmy Hoffa. The whole story is told from Frank's point of view, looking back. His life of, complicity.
And that triangle of loyalty, it's just fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
Frank is constantly caught in the middle. He's got this professional, almost like father-son thing with Bufalino.
Right. Very quiet, very controlled.
Yeah. And then this incredibly deep, complex, and often really volatile friendship with Hoffa. If you look at the film's structure, the emotional journey, it's such a devastating slow burn. That youthful, almost frantic energy you got in earlier mob films.
Yeah, like Goodfellas.
Completely gone here. It feels like the good times, quote unquote, are already distant memories. They're remembered with this detached, almost sorrowful feeling. These guys are already living with the consequences of everything they've done.
And to cover that huge time span, Scorsese needed the actors to play these guys across, nearly 6 decades?
Yeah, pretty much.
Which is where that digital de-aging technology came in, which I have to say was a bit jarring sometimes watching it.
It was, yeah. A little uncanny valley at times.
Did the sources suggest that the payoff, really hammering home that theme of aging and decay was worth that initial weirdness?
I think the general feeling was, yes, it was necessary. Some critics even argued the visual dissonance kind of helps the theme. You see these characters who look younger digitally, but they still move like older men sometimes. It's this constant reminder that time's irreversible.
Interesting.
The actors carry that history in their bodies, So it reinforces the film's focus on decay, not on recapturing youth.
And speaking of the acting, De Niro as Frank Sheeran, it's terrifyingly minimalist, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
He's presented as this emotionally stunted soldier, conditioned by World War II, just following orders. He talks about executing prisoners of war with the exact same flat tone he uses to order breakfast.
And that's the key, isn't it? That lack of any psychological barrier. De Niro nails this absolute terrifying unemotional stoicism. The real horror isn't just that Frank kills people. It's that his whole mindset, that WWII thing, follow orders, push feelings down, makes him unable to see the difference between killing an enemy soldier and ultimately betraying his best friend.
It's just work.
Murder is just labor. Painting houses.
That mindset perfectly sets up the inevitable tragic conflict. You see these really distinct, massive character archetypes just grinding against each other. Hoffa is the righteous rebel, all fire and theater, commands attention. But tragic because he only believes in loyalty when he's the one in charge,
Yeah, his way or the highway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then Bufalino is the complete opposite, the silent kingmaker. He's calm, minimalist, but underneath there's this absolute ruthless control.
He gets the real power, operates quietly.
Yeah.
And the whole film sort of builds towards Hoffa's disappearance. But critically, it's presented with this chilling, almost anticlimactic banality.
Right. That's the bit that maybe frustrated people expecting a classic mob movie ending.
Totally.
No huge dramatic showdown, no big shootout. It's just brutal, quiet business. Do the sources say Scorsese knew that was a risk, that lack of drama?
Oh, completely. The risk was the point. The goal wasn't to give you catharsis. It was devastation. By stripping away the drama, Scorsese makes Frank's betrayal and the spiritual ruin that follows feel so much heavier, so much more crushing. It's not some glorious cinematic death scene. It's just an efficient, almost bureaucratic murder. Cold.
So Hoffa disappears. The plot technically resolves, but the story is nowhere near done. That whole last hour, the kind of post-climax,
Yeah, the long fade out.
that's where Scorsese really pivots hard into the core themes. Aging, mortality, regret. The film forces you to see the only real consequence of that violent life. Ending up alone in a sterile nursing home, having outlived everyone who knew your secrets, who understood your world.
And this is where Frank's moral failure really crystallizes, I think. That post-war mentality he has, whatever happens, happens, it's shown to be this dangerous, almost pathological passivity.
It's an abdication, right, of moral agency.
Exactly. He just reduced murder to a job description. And that moral paralysis, that inability or unwillingness to choose, leads directly to his final terrible isolation. He never really made a choice for himself, only for Bufalino or Hoffa. And now he's paying that price of just empty obedience.
And the film gives us a very clear moral compass, but often without needing any dialogue at all. That's Frank's daughter, Peggy, played by Anna Paquin, the moral witness.
Her role is incredible. Hardly any lines across 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
But her look, that silent, judgmental gaze,
Yeah.
it becomes the film's conscience. When Frank finally tries to explain himself, tries to confess near the end.
Where silence just condemns him more powerfully than any shouting match ever could.
Exactly. Her disgust is like Frank's final, irreversible judgment. It's brutal.
So if we connect that personal tragedy to the bigger picture, the film really works as this devastating critique of history, too. It's looking pretty unflinchingly at that corrupt, symbiotic relationship between organized crime, organized labor, specifically the Teamsters Union, and national politics back in the mid-20th century.
Yeah, the film's huge scope kind of demands that context. It weaves in real historical events, not just Hoffa going missing. It suggests the mob's reach went deep into the power structures, mentioning things like the Bay of Pigs, hinting at the Kennedy assassination, showing the infiltration of unions.
Right.
The film basically illustrates how systemic corruption just becomes normalized. So widespread, it's just seen as business. Complicity becomes like necessary for things to function.
And that sense of systemic corruption, it's perfectly mirrored in the film's actual tone and style. Which brings us to the cinematic craft. I mean, this is peak Scorsese, working again with his legendary editor, Thelma Schoonmaker.
Oh yeah, masters at work.
They blend these timelines so seamlessly, don't they? Using this non-linear, almost memory-like structure, shifting between that 70s road trip, the courtroom stuff, Frank in the nursing home.
And the visual language totally matches that mournful tone.
Yeah.
It's not the flashy golds and reds of, say, Casino.
No, definitely not.
This film gets really muted, almost desaturated visually, especially in the later parts. That bleakness, it's deliberate. It reflects Frank's inner world just getting colder and more isolated.
And the soundtrack does that too, right? Curated by Robbie Robertson.
Yeah.
It feels less frantic, less rock and roll than some of Scorsese's other stuff. Lots of classic doo-wop, old standards.
Yeah, they act like memory markers, grounding you in the different decades Frank is moving through. It adds to that feeling of time passing, of eras ending.
Okay, we absolutely have to talk about the key metaphors. The big one is right there in the title of the book the film's based on, and that iconic line.
I heard you paint houses.
Yeah, chilling line.
It's a euphemism, obviously, for being a hitman. The paint is the blood spatter on the walls. And it's powerful because it just normalizes what Frank does. It frames murder as simple labor, just painting. It strips away any glamour, makes it mundane. And that's the real horror, maybe. For Frank, killing someone is just like punching the clock. Another day at the office.
But there's that other visual motif, the one that's grim but also kind of darkly funny.
Oh, the captions.
Yes, when they introduce some minor mob guy, and then boom, a caption pops up telling you exactly how and when he got whacked.
Yeah, it's like this morbid running gag, a Greek chorus of death notices. But it serves a deeper purpose, too. It's this constant, grim reminder of the inevitability of their fate.
Right.
Doesn't matter how cool or powerful these guys look in their sharp suits. That caption just reminds you instantly their lives are incredibly fragile and almost certainly going to end violently.
Right.
It just undercuts any sense of power they have.
And if we dive into the psychology a bit deeper, these characters feel almost archetypal. Frank, with his absolute obedience, that suppression of feeling, it's like the Jungian shadow, isn't it? The hidden part that handles the messy, amoral stuff. He's the soldier killing feeling for the sake of order.
Yeah, that fits. And Hoffa then, he's like pure ego. All self-belief, driven by external power, completely unable to yield to forces bigger than him. He just can't compromise, can't back down. And that rigidity is what destroys him in the end.
And Bufalino. He's maybe the patriarch, the kind of wise but ultimately corrosive father figure.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to shout. He just subtly manipulates Frank's loyalty, turning Frank into the weapon he uses to solve his Hoffa problem.
Quiet control.
And visually, Scorsese uses things like doors and hallways constantly, right? Yeah. They seem to underscore choices, moral barriers.
Yeah, what doors were open for Frank? Which ones did he slam shut forever with his actions? That constant movement between places feels like a life defined by tasks and orders, never really settled or at peace. It really emphasizes his lack of agency, moving through spaces dictated by others.
Okay, so let's try and bring this all together. The critical reaction was huge, immediate. People call it a somber masterpiece. Cinema as confession. It got amazing scores, 96% on Rotten Tomatoes, 94 on Metacritic, just stellar reviews.
Across the board, pretty much.
And yet, despite 10 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture, Best Director, it famously won nothing.
Yeah, the big goose egg, still talked about as one of the major snubs of the last decade or so.
Which feels weird given the acclaim.
It does. But maybe the film's power isn't really about awards. Its enduring strength is that sheer emotional weight. Scorsese isn't celebrating these guys, he's burying them. He shows us men who tragically mistook absolute obedience for having a purpose. They confuse deep loyalty to flawed men with actual morality.
Right.
And it's the silence at the end, the stillness that just suffocates whatever grandeur they thought their lives had. The power drains away, leaving just emptiness.
And that leads us perfectly to that final, really haunting image, something for you, the listener, to really consider. Frank, totally alone in the nursing home, asking the priest who visits him, asking him to leave the door slightly ajar when he goes.
That open door. It's Scorsese's final, just agonizing note, an echo of spiritual emptiness, regret, everything. And you're left asking, well, why? What does it mean? Is Frank still just out of a toxic, lifelong habit, guarding Hoffa, worried about who might walk through?
Or is he just terrified of the finality of isolation, the price he paid?
Or maybe? Maybe is he clinging to one last desperate thread of human connection, hoping someone, anyone, his daughter maybe, might just step back into his empty life?
That slightly open door, it feels like the ultimate symbol of his paralysis.
Exactly. It's the choice he never had the courage to make in life. Whether to shut himself off completely or leave just that tiny crack open for, I don't know, grace, connection, forgiveness. It just hangs there, haunting.